You know, I want to talk about an important topic. I've never heard anyone address this, and I've never really heard anyone go into detail about this. You know, I hear a lot of people say that during the 70s, during the 60s and 70s, that a lot of the black homes was broken up due to, having all these services come in, things like welfare, food stamps, all these different programs that was put in place for women. And they say, we all heard the stories about, they didn't allow a man to live in the house. And a lot of that is true. They did not allow the men to live in the house. The women will get a lot more services if the man was not present. And that, had a profound effect on the black household, and we've all heard about that. But a part of that no one has addressed, that a lot of these households, where they did have the men living in there, a lot of these men weren't the best men. Okay, so let's first understand this. Okay, this is the 60s and 70s. Okay, we're dealing with the drug era. Okay, we had heroin going on at this time. A lot of people were strung out on drugs at this time. So you had a lot of households where men were alcoholics. Men were abusive. A lot of these men were rigid, led with an iron fist. A lot of them led like tyrants. So we forget that aspect of it. From the women's standpoint, a lot of these social services that came out to benefit them was sort of a relief because they were in abusive relationships to begin with. The relationships wasn't healthy. Men was cheating. Men was doing all kind of things. They were beating women. So we can't overlook that aspect. I remember my dad telling us, and my mom telling us that back in the late 60s, early 70s, that my dad got sick and they had to go on assistance. Now understand, I have 10 brothers and sisters. Okay. Big family. And my dad was the only one that worked at that time. All right. So when they got sick, I believe they had to get some food stamps and get some assistance for a short period of time. However, my mother would have never chose that over my father because she understood she had a good man. She understood what type of man my dad was, and was to the day that he died. They were married for 51 years. So I don't think any woman would ever get rid of a good man. If that man was good, if he was a good father, if he was a good husband, a good partner, benefits or not, she would not have gotten rid of that man. And another thing is that I say all the time, even if the man, would have, had a plan and said, look, what they're offering you, I could never match. During the 60s and 70s, minimum wage, at that time, I'm not sure. Don't quote me on it, but minimum wage could have been $2.50 an hour. $2.50 an hour. So even at his best, if he would have worked a 40-hour week, at $2.50 an hour, let's see what we got there. We got $2.50 an hour times 40 hours. This is before taxes. Wow, that can't be right. That's like $100 and something bucks. So even if he was fortunate to work, he could have never matched what the government could have given her. He couldn't have matched the food stamps. He couldn't match the Medicaid, the health care, the SSI check. He could not have matched any of those things, no matter how hard he worked. But here's the thing. I say that men should have had a plan. They should have said, baby, look, we're going to take the deal. Okay. But when I leave out the front door, you unlock the back because I'm coming right back in. I'm not going to leave. I can move my clothes out. I can move some things out, but we're going to do what's in the best interest of the family. We're going to do what we have to do right now to raise these kids and make sure that they have health care and have the correct insurance. Even if the government programs was a problem, the man should have still have had a plan, okay, if he was leading his household correctly. So just to be pushed out and a woman to push him out, and he was a good man, I don't believe that was the case. I don't believe that was the case. You see, because we know and we hear about the stories. We hear about a lot of these men who were very abusive, a lot of these men that used to beat their wives, a lot of these men that would stay out all night, had another woman across town. Don't act like we ain't heard about it. Don't act like we don't know about it. You understand? So we're not going to sit here and just put it all on the fact that government programs came in and all of a sudden now the women took the deal, you know, and backstabbed all the men. That's not how it worked. That's not how it worked. And we can't keep spinning that narrative, you know, that's what our women did. And that's what our mothers did, because it's not the case. All right. You have to look at these cases. You have to look at what the man was able to do with his job, if he had one at all. You see? And if you got the average household with 3 to 5 kids back in the 60s and 70s, there's no way in the world that he could have made enough income to provide for his household, you know, in the manner in which the government programs was doing. Okay? So it should have been a plan in place. It should have been something that they talked about. Something that the men, you know, took in the best interest of the family and said, look, this is what we're going to do. Because that's what leaders do. Okay? Leaders just don't walk out the door. You know, these women didn't just kick these men out the door because these men were upstanding and the greatest husbands. So let's not act like that was the case. You know, and I've never heard anyone approach it from this aspect. No one talks about this. You know, we just immediately go to demonizing the women and say, yes, it divided the household. You know what? In a lot of cases it did. But there's also a lot of cases where it didn't. Okay. There's also a lot of cases where, you know, the woman was relieved to get out of the abuse. The woman was relieved to be able to protect her kids. Because there was a lot of nights that she was fearful when he was going off on a tyrant, when he was having one of his drunk spews and smacking her around. See, but she had to put up with it. She had to put up with it because it's all she had. You see, but as soon as an opportunity came for her to protect her children and to get out of that situation, she took it. She took it. You know what? And can't none of us be mad at her, because that protected a lot of these children. It protected a lot of the family. Okay. So we can't only keep viewing this just from one aspect. All right. Women has always did what it took to protect the family, you know? So we have to, you know, come together and come to the table and realize that there are other circumstances involved, not just her selling out the family or not just her taking the deal. She took this deal for a reason. She took it for a reason. And it wasn't just the financial reason. Okay? A lot of times it was because he had that other woman across town. Or those other women across town. So let's reevaluate it. Let's take a look at it. Let's take a hardcore look at it. And let's understand it from that perspective. You understand? Because there's a lot more that's involved. We can't keep using excuses. It's not about excuses. We can't act like we don't know the history. Okay? We know the history. We know the history of the government. And we know the history of men in that time. Now, a lot of those men were broken. You know, The heroin was pushed into the community. So we can talk about the reasons, okay, but we can't discuss everything at one time. All right. A lot of those men was broken, trying to get jobs, trying to work, being belittled, being stepped on, being called the N-word, being called boy. A lot of those men had a lot of issues that was put on them by society. You see, but this is not about the reason. This is about the fact that it happened. Okay? It happened. And we have to look at it from that aspect as well. Once again, my name is Shahid. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell. Don't forget to like